Yo, step backs and touchdowns. What's going on? It's your boy Antonio here, back with another boxing video for you guys. It is 2024, and we're gonna start the year off right with a boxing pound for pound top 10 rankings of the whole entire boxing community. I've been planning on doing this video for a long time now, since it's 2024, the start of the year. We had the whole 2023 to evaluate guys, watch some good fights. I thought it was right to start off the year with a boxing pound for pound rankings. And so we're going to get right into it. I'm going to give you guys some honorable mentions before we start. And I'm going to give you guys my criteria because there is a lot of backlash that comes with doing these rankings and ranking guys. Oh, you didn't put my favorite fighter here. You didn't put my favorite fighter there. He's better than so-and-so. So I'm going to give you guys my criteria so that y'all don't get mad at me. And once again, before we start, these are my opinions, my pound for pound that I've been watching. And that I feel like deserve to be on the list. So if your favorite fighter's not here, because your favorite fighter probably won't be here, I'm going to give you guys the criteria so you know what I'm ranking by. And I'm going to give you guys that just missed the list and probably will make the list in 2024 if they have a good year and can, clip some guys. So I'm going to give you my criteria first. My criteria. We're going off performance, right? The skills, the performance, how dominant your wins are, if you're having a clean performance. So if you're going into a 12-round fight, is it 8-2? Is it 9-1? Is it 10-0? How did you look in the fight? Did your skills show off? Did you have dominant power if you're a power fighter? So that's what I'm looking for. And consistency, man. You can't just, you look great this fight and then the next fight you look like an amateur. So that's what I'm doing. Consistency. The performances, how dominant your wins are, how clean the performances were, and your skills. I love skill-based boxing, so a lot of these guys are going to be skill-based in my list. But I mean, power, comes with skills, So that is a skill, having good power, and having timely shots, landing clean punches, and things of that nature. That is a skill in itself. So, power fighters aren't going to be left off this list just because they're not skilled. Power itself is a skill, and if you can finish guys. Resume. I'm looking at resume, the opponents you're fighting, the caliber of opponents you're fighting, how many world champions you fought, the championship fights that you're in. I'm not a guy, personally, for the pound for pound rankings that are putting guys that are fighting for money. That's good for, your health, your business, your brand, retire from boxing, don't let boxing retire you. That's cool and all. But in the pound for pound rankings list, we're going off of guys who put their all into this, that are making great fights, that aren't just fighting for money, that aren't taking the easy way out. Guys that are steady climbing the rankings, and are wanting to become world champions in each weight class they're in. So yes, I'm looking at resume, performances, skill, dominant wins, clean performances, and then third, belts. How am I going to put you on my list if you're not even holding belts at your weight class? If you're not the best at your weight class, then how am I going to put you on this list? How many belts did you hold in your weight division? Did you go up and win belts at that weight division? Did you go up and win belts at that weight division? That's sort of the things I'm looking at. So that's my criteria, just so you guys know before you go, go in the comments and say all type of things. This is my criteria. This is my list before we start. Now, some honorable mentions I want to give before we start our actual top 10. I do have a couple. I'm going to start with Errol Spence Jr. And for obvious reasons, he's not on this list. He looked terrible in his last fight against Terence Crawford. And he's been inactive. You can't be inactive and have a terrible performance. You know what I'm saying? So, Errol Spence. But, we know who Errol Spence is and what he was. We don't know if he's the same Errol Spence, but for right now, he's honorable mention. Another honorable mention I have is David Benavidez, the Mexican monster. Now, David Benavidez, man, he's a great fighter, and probably in 2024 he will be top 10. He's fought Caleb Plant. He just fought Boo Boo Andrade and made him look like cake. But we're waiting on that Canelo fight, man, and it's not his fault that the Canelo fight hasn't happened. But we're just gonna see the Mexican monster run through guys and hopefully get that Canelo fight he's been waiting on and see those results. And hopefully he can clip the top 10 in 2024. Bam Rodriguez is another guy I have. He's on a smaller weight division, so a lot of you guys probably don't know about him. He just dominated Sonny Edwards. to unify the belts. But you guys should definitely check out Ben Rodriguez. The guy I wasn't that familiar with until the past year or so. So he's a guy that's brought me back to the game of boxing. But Ben Rodriguez, you guys should definitely check him out. I'll probably leave a link down in the description to some of his highlights or some of his fights. But you guys definitely need to check him out in the lower weight division. And then the guy that I know you guys were waiting on, Gervonta Tank Davis, Abdul Wahid. I don't know. His Instagram handle is still Gervonta, but he said his name is Abdul Wahid. We're just going to go call him Tank. Tank is a guy that, is a lot of people's favorite boxers. But he's fighting for money, man. He's not, he got upgraded to the WBA light champion. But he doesn't even care about it. He hasn't fought in any championship fights at 135. He fights at a rehydration clause every fight he's in. He's not making the big fights. He's making the money fights like Ryan Garcia. He fought Hector Garcia, so I believe that Gervonta Tank Davis is skilled enough to be in the top 5 of this pound for pound rankings, but he's just not making the big fights, and it's not his fault. It's not Tank, it's Team Tank. I heard one of my guys, Showbiz did though. Shout out Showbiz. It's not Tank. Tank will fight anybody. It's Team Tank. It's Leonard Ellerby. It's Calvin Ford. It's all those guys who aren't making these big fights because Tank is such a big name, and they want to protect their guy instead of making the big fight. Sort of how Floyd Mayweather did in the later part of his years. And now those are all the honorable mentions. So we're gonna get into the actual top 10 list. Okay, and then so for my number 10 on my 2023 pound for pound rankings, to start the 2024 year off, we have Tyson Fury. Now, Tyson Fury is an interesting name. We all know he's 34-0 with 1 draw coming to Deontay Wilder. He's the WBC heavyweight champion of the world, right? And before his last performance, I probably would have had him around 5, in the top 5, maybe 6 or 7, right? But that fight against Francis Ngannou, man, that changed a lot of our opinions against Tyson Fury. Because of his dominant victories against Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder was the heavyweight king. He had 2 dominant victories, and the first fight was dominant as well, but it did become a draw because of the knockout or the knockdown that Deontay Wilder scored. Tyson Fury was almost pound for pound king. He was top 3, top 5 for sure. You don't just beat Deontay Wilder twice viciously and not be in the top 5 pound for pound. And then he had 2 knockout victories over Dillian White and Chisora. But the fight against Francis Ngannou, man. Francis Ngannou was a UFC fighter coming into his first fight and knocked down the best at heavyweight, the best of the heavyweight divisions. Well, top 2. I'll say top 2. But we're gonna see who's the best in the heavyweight division. But Tyson Fury beat the king in the heavyweight division, and then put up a performance like that against Francis Ngannou, man. That just doesn't happen. And so he dropped in my list because of that, And some people say that Francis Ngannou won the fight. I don't think Francis Ngannou won the fight. I think it was a very close decision that I gave to Tyson Fury because Tyson Fury outboxed him in the later rounds. But Francis Ngannou is a guy that he has terrible footwork. All he has is a right hand. He has terrible footwork, terrible defense, terrible stance. And I'm mad that Tyson Fury actually sat there and gave Francis Ngannou this name in boxing, and Francis Ngannou has the audacity to challenge Anthony Joshua to a fight. I don't think that's going to go well for Francis Ngannou because Anthony Joshua has shown the ability to box and outbox people when the power can't win. For example, the Andy Ruiz fights. So we'll see how Francis Ngannou does against Anthony Joshua, but as far as Tyson Fury goes, he has the chance to climb the list if he beats Alexander Usyk in February to become undisputed heavyweight champion. But for right now, he's number 10 on my list. And he could drop if he loses, man. Tyson Fury is on the back end of his career, and this tends to happen when you get on the back end of your career. So for right now, I have Tyson Fury at number 10. Now at number 9, I have Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson is a polarizing fighter, and he's, getting some backlash now because of his last fight against Edwin De Los Santos. Now, Shakur Stevenson is 21-0. He is a 3-division champion at 26 years old. That is unheard of. He is currently the WBC lightweight champion. He has dominating wins versus Jamel Herring, Oscar Valdez, and he had Conceição at 130, and he beat Yoshino earlier in 2023 in his debut at at 135, and then he beat De Los Santos for the WBC lightweight championship. Now, with Shakur Stevenson, we know he is the best defensive boxer in boxing. Nobody can hit Shakur Stevenson at all, and it shows time and time again. His offense is there, but what guys aren't mentioning against De Los Santos is if you watch his interviews and you really just watch the fight, if you could watch the fight, you could tell he did not have his power hand. He did not have that left hand. He was throwing straight jabs out of that southpaw stance. He did not have his left hand. He was not landing that left hand consecutively. And he came out and later said that he had an injury to that left hand. And guys aren't giving Shakur Stevenson the credit for beating De Los Santos, who was a good boxer. If you watched, he was a good boxer. If you watch his previous fights, he is a good boxer. If you watch the fight, beating De Los Santos with one hand, just neutralizing him with that jab, not getting hit. De Los Santos landed less punches than Shakur Stevenson did with both hands. But obviously Shakur Stevenson is going to get this, attention from the media because he's such a big name, and De Los Santos is not a household name yet. But I don't think Shakur is getting the credit he deserves for that fight. But in 2024, the future is bright for Shakur Stevenson. I see Shakur Stevenson defending his belt. I don't know against whoever's the mandatory. And then I see him taking on the winner of Lomachenko versus Kambosos to unify the belts at 135, which I think Shakur Stevenson will win against either of those guys. But it will be a great fight. So I think Shakur Stevenson, right now I have him at number 9, but he will probably, in my opinion, I think Shakur Stevenson is a future pound-for-pound king when he gets, in his 30s. But for right now, he is at number 9 at 26 years old, which is, he has a great resume at 26 already. Like I said, 3-division world champion at 126, 130, and 135. Now at number 8, we have Teofimo the Takeover Lopez. Now Teofimo Lopez is 19-1. He's a 2-division world champion. Now, he started the undisputed, he wasn't undisputed at 135, but he started that undisputed trend at 135. He held 3 belts at the lightweight division. He had dominating wins at 135 and 140. He's taken out the king of the 135 division and Vasily Lomachenko, and he took out the king of the 140 division and Josh Taylor. Now, you would think he would be higher for taking out the king at both weight divisions, but he's had disappointing performances. Like I said, I'm a man of consistency. Teofimo Lopez is not consistent. The loss versus George Kambosos at 135, that really hurt his resume, getting knocked down in the first round. And then the disappointing performance for Sandor Martin, getting knocked down and ultimately winning a close fight at that one. That's really brought him back, man. If he wins those fights, man, he's probably top 5. But he beat Lomachenko, who was the pound-for-pound king, the king of the 135 division. Nobody wanted to fight Lomachenko. He beat him pretty easily. Lomachenko had injuries that fight, but Teofimo Lopez beat him pretty easily, man. That was an easy win for Teofimo Lopez. And then going up to 140 and beating Josh Taylor like that this year, that was polarizing, man. It was a dominating fight. And then retiring right after, he said it was a publicity stunt, but yeah, man, I'm happy to see what Teofimo Lopez is doing, and I'm interested to see his fight against Jermaine Ortiz in February as well. See what he can do to build a fight with, maybe Devin Haney, maybe Ryan Garcia, maybe Rolly Romero. So Teofimo Lopez is at number 8 for me, but could also climb the list because he is still also 26 years old. Now at number 7, I have a guy that many of you casual fans, which, no disrespect to the casual fans, but this is what we're here to do. We're here to help you learn some names and help the boxing community grow. This is the part of the channel. We have Artur Besik. Now, Artur Besik is polarizing. Oh, my goodness. If you haven't watched Artur Besik, please, 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 please watch him. Now, he is 20-0 with 20 knockouts, 100% knockout rating, 100% stopping rating. He holds 3 of the belts at 175. He's defeated Joe Smith Jr. In 2 rounds. He had a dominant win versus Marcus Brown. He didn't look that dominant in January in his fight. But if he just fought in January, he was the first big fight of the new year. And man, oh man, Artur Besik looked dominant as ever. He didn't look, he's not as skillful as a Bivol, as a Canelo, but the power is there, man. The power is there. He turns 39 this year. But the victory he had against Caleb Smith really, that was really dominating. But it's gonna set up a unification, or not a unification, undisputed at 175 versus Dmitri Bivol, which I'm excited to see. That will happen this year. So in 2024, we got some great boxing fights. Like I've said, Lomachenko versus Kambosos, Beterbiev versus Bivol, Usyk versus Fury, or Fury versus Usyk. But yes, Artur Besik, man, he has polarizing power, and I really hope you guys can watch the Beterbiev versus Bivol. The only downside to Beterbiev, like I said, he's turned 39 this year. And we don't know if the power is going to run out. But after watching his last fight, the power is still there, man. Caleb Smith does not get knocked out like that. And he got knocked out versus Beterbiev. But yeah, Artur Besik, please, if you guys can, watch some Artur Besik. Now at number 6, we have Dmitri Bivol. He's 22-0. And he is the first man in 9 years to defeat Canelo Alvarez. And he did it fairly easily, man. Before that fight with Canelo, he wasn't in nobody's top 10. He probably wasn't even in the honorable mentions. But he beat Canelo Alvarez, and he's ran with it. He looked dominant his last 2 fights. His last fight in Saudi Arabia, man, he looked good. He's a skillful boxer. He's one of the best defensive boxers in the world. He has a top 5 jab in the world. He's very skillful, and like I said, skills pay the bills. I love skills. If you're a skillful fighter, I'm gonna rank you highly. But like I said, he's looking to be undisputed versus Beterbiev, and I have them at 6 and 7. Whoever wins this fight could potentially pop up into the top 5. Especially Bivol, since he has that win over Canelo, he could probably eclipse Canelo. But yes, Dmitri Bivol, like I said, very skillful, dominant jab. Doesn't have the knockout power that you would like. But he, like I said, he doesn't need the knockout power. He beat Canelo, neutralizing him with that jab, just moving around the ring. Yeah, Dmitri Bivol is number 6 in my top 10 pound-for-pound rankings. Now, coming in at number 5, we got Devin the Dream Haney at 31-0. Now, Devin Haney is coming off of a dominant performance December 9th against Regis Prograis, who was a contender at 140. His only loss being against Josh Taylor, who was the king. But he beat Regis Prograis easily, won every single round, dominated him from the start to the ending. And he even scored a knockdown, which the knock on Devin Haney is he doesn't have knockout power, but he showed that he has knockout power at 140. Not devastating power, but like I said, timing with the power, precision, clean shots. Now, Devin Haney became undisputed after he beat Kambosos twice in his hometown, in Australia, in dominant fashion. I mean, the second fight, he brutally beat on George Kambosos, become undisputed at 135, and he defended his belt versus Lomachenko in a controversial decision. But it really wasn't that controversial to me. I've watched that fight 4 or 5 times now, and every time I've had Devin Haney winning that fight. I think, Loma was the fan favorite. Loma's a fan favorite of everybody. And so they were, leaning Lomachenko. But if you go back and watch that fight unbiased and just watch, the fight, no sound, just watch the clean fight, you'll see Devin Haney neutralizing Vasily Lomachenko with the body shots, man. The body shots were brutal, and he was landing the body shots all night long. Yeah, that's Devin Haney. He's moved up to 140. Like I said, he's a champion at 140. And we're going to see if he fights Tiimo Lopez, if he fights Ryan Garcia, Rolly Romero, whoever he's going to fight at 140. We will definitely be tuning in to Devin Haney. He is pay-per-view worthy because he puts on the show every fight. Now at number 4, we got the pay-per-view king, Saul Canelo Alvarez. He is 62-2. Now, like I said, pay-per-view king, undisputed at 168. He fights the best of the best. He stays active. He beat the former opponent. He didn't look like everybody knows about Canelo. Everybody knows how good Canelo is, man. He was the best fighter in the world. Bivol, kind of lowered him, but it's Canelo fighter. He attacks the body. We're still waiting on him to fight David, the Mexican monster Benavidez. Fought for everything, got the belts. But yeah, we're interested to see what Canelo Alvarez does in 2024. Now the top, you guys tell me, you probably already have an opinion on it, but you guys tell me, was it a low blow or not? Personally, I don't think it was a low blow. But personally, I don't think it mattered because Alexander Usyk's skills showed, he was dominating Dubois all night. Dubois isn't, the most skillful fighter, but he was outboxing Dubois all night. And he didn't look like he was slowing down. These heavyweights, they're getting older in age. And they say power's the last thing to go, but Alexander Usyk's skills are still there. And it's going to set up for a beautiful bout versus Tyson Fury in February. And I'm excited to see it, man. I'm excited to see it. See who's the best heavyweight in the world, Fury or Usyk. And then even Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua is showing that he might be the best heavyweight in the world. But yeah. Coming in at number 2, this is where it gets, tricky because I debated on this with myself time and time again. At one, it's so hard. It's so hard. These two guys are so dominant, and it's just like you just pick your poison, man. You just pick your poison. Either one, number one, I won't argue with you. I feel like they're both the best boxer in the world in their own right, man. It just depends, man. Whoever fights next, they're the new pound for pound number 1. But coming in number 2, I have Terence Bud Crawford. Yes, Terence Bud Crawford. Even after his dominant performance against Errol Spence, yes. Even after becoming 2-time undisputed, yes. Yes. Now, Terence Crawford is 40-0, and man, he's a 3-division world champion. The first male boxer to become 2-time undisputed. He had the most dominant performance of the year, hands down. Nobody could predict what he was going to do to Errol Spence. I had him knocking out Errol Spence, but nobody predicted it to be that way. Errol Spence, that was the worst Errol Spence has ever looked in his entire career and will look in his entire career. You don't just beat a guy like Errol Spence like that. He had 3 knockdowns and a 9th round stoppage, man. He stopped every fighter at this weight at welterweight. He stopped Amir Khan, Kell Brook, Sean Porter, Errol Spence. Sean Porter was never stopped. He got stopped against Terence Crawford. Errol Spence was never stopped. He got stopped against Terence Crawford. Now, the only reason, not the only reason, but the main reason that he's not number 1 for me is one, inactivity. He fights one time a year. And the guy having number 1, he doesn't fight one time a year. And he has just as many accomplishments as Terence Bud Crawford. But I believe Terence Crawford is the smartest boxer in the world. I believe he has the best IQ in the world. But at number 1, man, it's just hard to top that guy now. Terence Crawford, if he fights Spence again, gets the victory, maybe he's number 1 because beating Errol Spence twice is unheard of. If he goes up and weights, goes to 168 and fights Canelo Alvarez, it's hard to deny he's number 1. But for right now, I have him at number 2, man. And tomorrow I might wake up and think he's number 1. But right now, I have him at number 2. Now, at number 1, I have Naoya Inoue, man. Naoya Inoue, 26-0. He is a 4-division world champion. 2-time undisputed in a span of a year. That is unheard of. Nobody's ever done that before. He's the second male boxer behind Terence Crawford to become 2-time undisputed. But he did it in a span of a year. He's never had a fight in his whole entire career that he did not dominate. His closest fight was the first fight with Nonito Donaire, and I scored at 117-109 in favor of Inoue. He stopped his last 7 opponents. Only 2 fighters he's ever fought he did not knock down, and the last one was 10 years ago. He beat both the top guys at 122 in a 5-month span. He stays active. He fights 3 times in the calendar year. He's looking to fight in May against a guy who is a dominant fighter. And I think he's the most fun fighter to watch, man. If you watch Naoya Inoue, you are never not entertained. He's stopping guys. He's showing off the skills. He's showing off good defense. He beat Stephen Fulton in a dominant fashion right before the Terence Crawford fight. And I did a prediction on that fight. And I thought it was 50-50, and it turns out it was more like 90-10. In the last fight, he just had dominant performance. Scored knockdowns, showed off the skills. And Naoya Inoue, man, I will always tune in. Now, the only reason I don't think he gets the recognition that he deserves is because he's fighting in Japan, and a lot of guys aren't getting up at 3 a.m. to watch his fights. But the fight against Marlon Tapales, I mean, that was dominant. And Marlon Tapales fought back, unlike Stephen Fulton, and Naoya Inoue still came out victorious, man. And anytime Naoya Inoue is fighting, I will be watching, and I feel like you should do the same. At least catch some highlights. If you don't want to stay up till 3 a.m. to watch, man. But Naoya Inoue, man, in 2024, he's gonna fight 2 times this year, 3 times in the calendar year, like he always does, in the span of a year, excuse me. But man, he's got the skills, he's got the knockouts, he's got the resume, he's got the power. Everything in my criteria, he checks off every list twice. That's how good he is, man. And he's been in the pound-for-pound rankings for a long time. Him and Terence Crawford, even Canelo Alvarez, even Alexander Usyk. You know, the only guy that hasn't been is Devin Haney, and he made the top 5. So yeah, these are my top 10 rankings. You guys, let me know down below in the comments what you think. Who's in your top 10? Who did I leave off? Who should I recognize? Where do you have your favorite fighter? Where did I have your favorite fighter? But yeah, man, this is my top 10 for now. Like I said, things can change, especially with Inoue and Terence Crawford. They're so good, they're so interchangeable. But I'm gonna do one of these every year probably. It's just so fun to rank, see who you guys rank, and compare lists and things like that. But yeah, man, 2024 is an eventful year for boxing fans. We're getting some great fights. We're getting some great fights made. And you guys let me know down in the comments what fight you're looking forward to the most. The fight I'm looking forward to the most right now is Fury and Usyk, and then Loma and Kambosos, and then Shakur versus the winner of that, if that fight can be made right now. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. Tune in, like, comment, subscribe, share this to the guys. We're trying to blow up 2024. We got some more podcasts coming out, more basketball news coming out, more boxing news coming out, more football news coming out, even though, man, we don't want to talk about football right now. But, yeah, guys, thank you guys for watching. Step backs and touchdowns. We out.